I have the chat open. So welcome everybody to unleash your potential with Chris Sievers. And I'm going to let you introduce your course completely, Chris, with the right terminology. And I'm Suzette with Resurrection MCC. We have a few people in the room here who want to learn about unleashing our untapped potential. So go ahead and share your screen, Chris, and take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Suzette. I really enjoy being here tonight. I look forward to sharing this with you. Let me share my screen if I can. It's not allowing me to share.
Suzette, you're muted.
Sorry, I have you as the co-host, so it should allow
Okay.
you to share your screen. I can make you the host. Let me do that.
There we go. I think I found it.
Okay, great.
There. Can you see my screen there?
Yes.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, we are unleashing your adaptive potential, a journey through the unexpected turns. And in a world of change, we have twists and turns all around us every day. But how do we adapt to those, not only to survive, but so that we can thrive? And that's the question we're going to delve into in the next few minutes. So I want you to take notes, and we'll have a Q&A at the end. So if you want to, write your questions down so that you don't forget them, we'll go over those for you. And I'll be talking about adaptability. So first, I've got a few jokes. Did you hear about the extremely adaptable chiropractor to insects? He was great at making adjustments on the fly. And I would assume spiders are adaptable to online learning. After all, they're comfortable with the web. So thanks for humoring me for those corny jokes, but I just had to do them for adaptability's sake, because we are all adaptable. Oops. There we go. So we're all adaptable, right? I'm going to move my screen here. Somehow it is kind of rearranged itself on me. There we go. I think I'm ready. So what is adaptability? The definition is adaptability refers to the ability of an individual, organization, or system to adjust and thrive in response to changing circumstances, environments, or situations. It involves being flexible, resilient, and open-minded, capable of embracing new challenges, opportunities, and ways of thinking. Adaptability enables individuals to navigate uncertainty with agility, innovate in the face of adversity, and continuously evolve to meet evolving demands and goals. So we are always presented with ways that we can adapt. Sometimes we just kind of ignore it and just go with the flow because it's comfortable that way. Adaptability kind of requires us to be stepping into our uncomfortable areas. Not always, but most usually. And adaptability isn't just rolling with the punches. It's about facing the uncertainty and embracing the change as an opportunity for growth. And it will harness our innate resilience to navigate life's unexpected journey. First, we have to watch what we tell ourselves. We have to then decide how we're going to feel. We get to choose our feelings. We're human. We do get to choose our feelings. We can either choose to feel bad or we can choose to feel good. But we get to adapt to that. I'm going to tell a story here that my mentor conveyed, and I think it kind of shows how adaptable we can be. The story is he was headed to a conference in Chicago to do a keynote speech. He was leaving LA on his flight, and he arrived for his flight and found out that it was delayed. They was waiting for a part, and if they got the part in and fixed, they'd be on their way, make up the time in the air, no problem. He'd be there on time. Well, it got later and later. He got a little more agitated. He asked the counter agent, are we going to make it there on time? Well, if we get the part, we'll get it, going, and we'll get you off the ground and we'll get you in the air and they'll make up the time. But it kept being delayed and he got more and more frustrated. Finally, they did take off and they encountered turbulence. The captain told them that they would have to go around the storm and that they weren't going to get in as early as they had hoped, but he'd get them there safely. Well, he finally got to Chicago and was frazzled just beyond words. So he was running to the rental car counter, just out of his mind with, worry. He got there telling the agent he's got to hurry, he's going to miss his meeting. Well, she was trying to get, his reservation in his car done. And right before, when she handed him his keys, oh, I need a map. This was before GPS, by the way, and before cell phones. So in the process, she handed him a map and he headed to the car, didn't look at it, got his keys, got in the car, threw his bag in, off he went. Well, where is he going? So he pulls out the map. We're trying to find the street he needs to be on. And kept going and kept going, couldn't find it, getting more and more frustrated, getting closer and closer to the time he needs to do his speech. So he saw that he wasn't getting anywhere. He stopped at a gas station, runs into the clerk. The clerk's this older lady standing at the counter. I need to get here. I can't find it with this map. Where am I going wrong? She looked at him. She said, sir, you're never going to get to your destination with this map. This map is of Detroit. You are in Chicago. Let me get you the right map. How many of us been on the wrong map? I have. So she got him the right map, found his street, got him to his destination. He was there on time to do his speech. So what did he have to do? He had to adapt on the fly in the face of adversity, stop and get directions, very much unlike a man. Sorry, guys, I put myself in that case. So we have to adapt in all situations. But what we don't want to do is we don't want to make something big, because when we make something big, that makes us small. So if we have a big problem, we're small facing a big problem, and that is hard to adapt to. So we have to be careful of how we identify something that we are going to be facing that we probably didn't want or prefer, but we're facing it. So we want to make it as small as possible. We don't want to put a lot of energy on something big. And that starts with the words we tell ourselves. We can start out with anger, and we can say things in anger. And the words that we speak do have the ability to hurt. And usually it doesn't hurt the other person, it hurts us even more. Because that anger and those words are embedded into our subconscious now. So when something else happens, that's going to repeat again and again. So we want to watch what we say. I have had the wonderful experience through my life of saying the wrong things and hateful things and regretting them later. But I've had many mentors help me through that and help me to take pause before I state what I was going to say. And is it worth saying it? So sometimes you have to ask yourself in a split second, is it worth it? And if you have to ask yourself, most usually it's not worth it. So just be conscious of what you speak, because it is energy. Your words are energy, and that energy will ripple out beyond you to places that you don't really even realize. So how do we change or adapt to a new way of thinking? It starts with our mindset. Our mindset is a crucial role in how we perceive and respond to change. By cultivating a mindset of adaptability, we can reframe challenges into opportunities, and we can unleash a creative potential and chart a course towards a fulfilling future. So if you're angry, you're not going to be as adaptable as you are when you're going to be happy and everything's just peaches and cream. When everything's peaches and cream, we can all be adaptable and creative. So we want to keep ourselves in a frame of mind that is more at peace and calm. That doesn't mean that we're not going to get upset or angry at times. We're still human, but we can notice that. And the first point of adaptability is noticing, how am I feeling at this moment? Am I frustrated? Do I have anxiety? If I have that, I'm not going to be as adaptable, and I'm not going to be saying things that are most positive and encouraging. So we want to notice that. And when something big or bad happens, there's a split second between the event and our anger or anxiety kicking in. It's within that split second that we need to hit our internal pause button. And if you're like me, you're going to say, well, where's my internal pause button? I didn't know I had one. I didn't know I had one. No one ever told me where it was, didn't tell me that I had one. But when I found it, it changed everything. The internal pause button is that split second between an event and my reaction. And to reframe that, we hit our pause button. We don't make it big, bad. We don't get angry. You know, whatever the feeling is that wants to rise up, we stop. We take a deep breath, as deep as you can, and then you blow it out as though you're blowing out through a straw. And you do this 3 times. This has been proven through Harvard Medical Science I forget what they call it. There's a name for it. Harvard. Anyway, Harvard. They did a study on this, and this is stopping your brain response from flight or fright to rest and digest. So in fright or flight, you're not going to be adaptable at all. You're going to go angry or get anxiety. You're not going to be able to think the way you need to think to make decisions. So when you pause and you take 3 deep breaths, blowing it out like you're blowing through a straw, you're going into a rest and digest. And this is an area that you're most creative. So you can think of a new way to face whatever it is that has popped up. You can think of new ideas. You can ask questions that's more empowering. How do I handle this? What should I do? And when you do it from the rest digest state of mind, you're going to have more empowering and more positive thoughts come into your awareness that you would not have if you're in a fight or flight mode. Does that make sense with everybody? Sometimes I get so engrossed, I kind of forget to ask if everybody's with me here. So what we're going to explore is how we can then take actionable steps once we are in this mode. But first, we're going to illustrate how the power of adaptability lets the drive into someone's real life examples. I'm sorry, my slide is a little blurry. We're going to see real life examples of individuals who have embraced change, negative uncertainty, and emerged stronger on the other side. And their stories will help inspire us for what's possible. The first thing I want to do is, I love this quote, and it's from the book Science of Getting Rich by Wallace Wattles. It says, every adversity has an equal or greater good. Now, when you hear that, we can think of a million things that, how is there good in cancer? How is there good in someone dying? And sometimes we have to look really hard for the good. And sometimes we may not see it right away. So we have to keep ourselves open to possibilities. So for the real life examples of people facing adversity, the first one comes to mind is Oprah. Oprah was fired from TV because she was unfit for TV. Now she owns her own TV station or channel. The other one that comes to mind is Steven Spielberg. He was rejected from film school 3 times. I'm sure we could all name one of his movies now. These people had to adapt to overcome the adversity they faced. They didn't know how they was going to do it that day or the next day, perhaps, but they kept at it and kept adjusting and adapting to whatever they felt was necessary to get them to the next level. Professional sports players, they have coaches and mentors to help them adapt to different situations. They practice and practice and practice so that they can practice adapting to different situations. They watch their films over and over to see where they can improve. That's why I'm a life coach. I can see when somebody says, well, I can't do this, I can see beyond this. And I can help them reframe it to where the problem isn't as big as they see it to be. My mentor has a quote that I love. It's hard to see the picture when you're in the frame. So sometimes we need to step out of the frame and refocus on what the picture is that we're wanting. And we've all had to adapt. Just like when you started driving a car, you were probably at 10 and 2 at the wheel, gripping it tightly. I'm sure we could all drive down the road with 2 or 3 fingers now and kind of talk and look around. It's not a big deal because we've adapted to the car, we've adapted to our surroundings, and we know how to function in our surroundings. We can do that with life as well. The other example that I want to bring here is Jerry Rice. He's an American professional football player. He was a wide receiver for 20 seasons in the NFL. My mentor got to interview him 3 years ago. And what I liked about his story is in those 20 seasons, he did not miss one preseason practice. Every new player has to go to preseason football practice all the time so that they can do their reps on the field. And when Jerry was asked why, because after a few years, you don't have to go to the practice, he said, I wanted to be adaptable to whatever I was going to face. I wanted to be the best at my profession. He said, and that was the way I showed up. Every time they had preseason game or preseason practice, I was there. He was the first one on the field doing his runs, his sprints every morning before the sun came up. He was adapting and learning adaptability in whatever he was going to face on the field. And that is what we all need to do to be adaptable. It's practice. We need to put ourselves in unfamiliar circumstances, situations, to learn to be adaptable so that we can face any situation or condition that comes up. My story is, I'll start at age 8. I was going to be singing in our church. I knew everyone in this church. We was a very close church, very close-knit family type church. There was about 300 people. I knew my song. I practiced the song with the piano player. She knew the song. I was dressed in my cute little leisure suit, marched up on the platform, was given the microphone, and I turned around and I looked at all these people looking at me, and I froze. I couldn't move a muscle. The piano player started playing my song, thinking it would help me. Nothing. What seemed like hours probably was just a few minutes. My mother came and rescued me from the stage. That set me on a trajectory for my whole career up until a few years ago. I never spoke in public. At work, if I was to give a speech, I would have an employee do it, telling them that it was for their growth and advancement. I couldn't do it. I was scared. Always telling myself, I can't speak in public. Well, fast forward to 2020, when I was going through my certification for being a life coach. I love the thought of helping people. I was just passionate about it. I was getting in there. Week 5, they said I would be speaking in public, and I froze. I literally felt myself go tense, sweaty palms, my face was red. And I'm like, I can't do this. But the next thought was, if you're going to be a life coach, wouldn't you want to help your clients by telling them how you went through and overcome the fear? Or do you want to tell them from theory? Well, my response immediately was I wanted to tell them from how I overcome it. So I embraced the thought of speaking in public, scared to death. And thanks to my wonderful husband, he suggested Toastmasters. Well, I had heard of Toastmasters, but I didn't know anybody that did it. And I didn't really know what all they did. But he had a friend that is in Toastmasters, and he gave me his number. Well, I procrastinated and didn't call him. We were at a party one night, and a friend of ours that I'd known for ever since I'd known Anthony, I found out he was in Toastmasters. So I started asking him questions, and he started explaining it about the program. So I went, and lo and behold, they asked me to speak the first night. I about freaked out, but I spoke. I gave them my name, told them why I was there, and it felt comfortable but scary at the same time. And they encouraged me, and that just kind of gave me the encouragement that I needed. So I joined Toastmasters. Well, fast forward in 2022, beg your pardon, 2021, July, I was not yet certified, but my mentor says you need to do your first workshop. And I got very scared again. I'm like, but I'm not certified, making excuses. She's like, that doesn't matter. Do your workshop. So I scheduled a workshop. 15 people showed up. I got up there shaking, voice quivering, sweaty palms, but I give the workshop. And I got great reviews. People enjoyed it. They got a lot out of it. And that was encouragement. So I kept on. Fast forward to last year. I had never sang to anyone, only in church or with a bunch in an audience would I ever sing. So I was given the opportunity to do a 6-week learning the song, and on the 6th week, singing in front of a paying audience. Who does this? Never have sang in front of anyone before, and now you're going to sing in front of an audience that has paid? Who's crazy enough to do that? Well, I did it. I stepped in. And again, knees shaking, hands quivering, voice quivering, missing cues, missing notes, off key a little bit, but I did it. And the response that I got from people was overwhelming. All this bad singing, missing notes, the encouragement was, you did great. And I did what I needed to do to step into the next version of myself. I stepped into the fear and adapted on the fly and embraced the adversity that I felt that I was facing, which was a big crowd. Only 70 people, but it was big to me. But I did it, and I overcame that fear and stepped into it and adapted. And that is what I want to convey to everyone that is afraid of changing, afraid of change, or resist change. What do they say? Resist what you resist persists. So if there's something you're facing, take a deep breath, get yourself into the rest and digest state of mind, and face it. If you make it big, it's going to be big. If you make it neutral, then it can be neutral. You get to decide. But if you want to get over something or overcome something, the best way is to go through it. You can't really go around it, over it, or under it. You have to go through it if you want to get through it. So at the heart of adaptability lies the ability to embrace change. And that is what we're talking about, is embracing change instead of resisting it. So when something seems big, is it because somebody told you it's big? Is it somebody else's version of big? Because somebody else telling me something is big, that is a construct that they have made out of their own experience. It doesn't have to be my experience. So I get to choose whether it is big or whether it's just a stepping stone. If it's a stepping stone, step my way through it, take that step, and then move forward. So we can make fear be F everything and run, or face everything and reframe. So what I like to do is, when something makes me afraid or seems to want to make me afraid, why? Where is that coming from? I start to analyze things more as, is it afraid that I can't do it? Or is it afraid that I am going to do it and succeed? There are two fears of the same boat. I heard a preacher say the other day, be careful what you wish for. You just might get it, but it's probably not going to come the way you would prefer. And that is the way opportunities present themselves usually. They come to us in unexpected ways. The opportunity for me to sing in front of a paying crowd was totally unexpected. I was talking to the person in a whole different direction, but when it came up and presented itself, of course, my first reaction was like, that's big. But is it? Is it something I would love? And that's the other thing. If you're wanting something and it seems big, would you really love it? Just ask yourself, would I really love this? And if the energy there is a resounding yes, then it can't be big because it's already yours. You thought it. And then you just need to take the steps to make it happen. So that's the opportunity you have to step into the fear and take the step that you know to take. And you can make it yours. You just have to keep taking the steps. So charting a course forward as we, ooh, I keep doing that. I think it's my mouse. Sorry, folks. There we go. Either my mouse or my fingers, one of the two, sorry. So as we near the end of our journey here tonight, I invite you to reflect on what you've heard and what you could consider to apply to your life so that you could be adaptable and you could put these strategies in place in your own experiences. But remember, adaptability is not a destination. It's a continuous journey, and it's a journey of growth and discovery for your transformation. Continuous learning is a good way to be more adaptable. The more you learn, the more you're going to be familiar with other things. you're taking yourself out of that comfort zone. And when you put yourself continuously in an unfamiliar status, you're going to be more adaptable in any situation or condition. So if you've resonated with any of this tonight, I wanted to leave you with some tools to where you could get more information and become more clear on your adaptability. The first one is my website, dreamsandbloomllc.com. I have workshops and programs there. The second is a book by Spencer Johnson, Who Moved Your Cheese? A boss gave this to me early in my career and had me read this because he saw the potential in me, but he saw that I wasn't really adaptable. I was very resistant to change. And this book helped me be more adaptable to change, specifically in the work environment. The other is the article, The Science of Thriving Through Crisis by the Harvard Business Review. This is where they explore the science behind thriving during challenging times and provide actionable strategies for adaptation. There's the TED Talk by Brené Brown, The Power of Vulnerability. This is where she discusses the importance of vulnerability and embracing change as key elements in building resilience and adapting to new situations. There's the podcast, Change Management and Adapting to New Realities by Harvard Business Review. And then there's the research paper by Dr. Angela Lee Duckworth, The Role of Psychological Resilience in the Face of Uncertainty and an Economic Downturn. In this paper, she explores the concept of psychological resilience and its role in helping individuals adapt and thrive in the face of uncertainty and an economic downturn. These are all great resources that will help open your mind to being more adaptable in the face of uncertainty. And being adaptable and resilient just helps you thrive more in life. You don't have to be afraid of what's around the corner when the next turn comes in life. I thank you for joining me tonight. I hope that you leave feeling inspired and empowered and ready to unleash the adaptive potential you have within you. But remember, as you leave here, no matter what twists and turns that you may face in life, you have the power within you to adapt, thrive, and chart a course towards a brighter future. Until we meet again, stay adaptable and embrace your journey. Thank you. Now I'll take questions and answers.
Thank you, Chris. That was awesome. I think that your conversation is super timely for our church right now because we're in a kind of a state of big change, financial, and how to deal with that, and what are our resources, how can we adapt as a church and continue to thrive in that same way. So I think it's very timely that we had this conversation, but I did take some notes, and I think that a few of your points that really resonated with me was that realizing that you choose your reaction. I think that people really don't realize that they're mentally in charge of what happens to them. So I think as a young person, I used to be an anxiety-stricken person, anxiety attacks. And then one day I just came upon the realization that I was deciding to panic constantly. But it took a lot of practice. It took tons of practice and mentally reframing. Where am I? I'm not in a crowd. I'm at the beach where there's a sunset and all this other stuff. So that's a very valid technique that you brought to light was the reframing, and then the somatic breathing. There's a whole thing on YouTube about somatic breathing. I think that every person on the planet should experience it. And then mentors. Mentors are a gift from God. They've been through what you're going through, and there's no better audience and no better person to help you get to that next step than with a mentor. And just the continuous practice of probable outcomes. I think that by practicing, it becomes rote to us. You know, we have the ability to continue to do something that used to scare us, but now it's just part of who we are. So thank you for that tonight. And I would like to open the floor for questions. If there's anyone out there, Carol or Ron and Vince, Craig, if you have something that you'd like to mention that resonated with you about Chris's talk, I'd love to have you join us.
Well, it's just, the problems, and I knew this before, so it was like a big whack side the head, but forgot it, it's like, don't look at the problem big because it's just one step at a time, and you can eat an elephant one bite at a time.
Right.
Yeah, I like the idea of shrinking the problem down to my size instead of me having to grow bigger to face the problem or the issue. In my case, as I age, I'm having to deal with adaptability to changes in my health. And so yeah, it's making it a little bit smaller. I remember, for those of you, I can't remember, there was this TV show on years and years ago called Ally McBeal, and she was a lawyer, and I used to love that show. And one of the episodes, one of her colleagues asked her, how come your problems are so much bigger than everybody else's? And she's responded, because they're mine. and I'm not quite at that split second time frame yet, Chris, but I try to give myself a couple of moments to take that breath and then come into the present moment, come into the awareness of the moment right now. And then, like you said, then you can start reacting out of something other than fear, anxiety, anger. So I have gotten better at that. And that really comes in handy, especially at work. So I really appreciate this. The thing I take away is don't make the problem so big. Shrink it down to my own size. Thank you.
I think we forget sometimes how how just the breaths can just help us recenter. I was just talking to a mentor this morning about how I wanted to be less reactive when I'm angry and how it's gotten me in trouble in the past, and I've not had the outcomes that I wanted. And that is just such a wonderful, simple reminder to just hit the pause button. I love the way you said that.
Thank you. When I found that, I actually went to work and tested it. And I was telling someone earlier, when I would be confronted by clients, my response was always defense, no matter what. And that normally didn't end well, usually. But when I learned this technique, I went to work, and a guy that always got me defensive approached me, and I used this technique. Internally, I breathed and let it out. He did not see it, but I chose and was able to react differently. And literally, he jumped in shock. And I had just remembered this the other day, that, his reaction, and it was because I didn't react my normal way, and he didn't really know how to do that. But ever since then, our relationship has been totally different. My boss called him a teddy bear. He he's this gruff, old, crotchety old man that has had to be tough in his environment all of his life. But when you take him out of that, he's just a little puppy dog.
So I see Christy has her hand raised. What do you have to
Yeah.
say, Christy? You're muted.
I was just going to relate it to my life and my job. Can y'all hear me okay?
Uh-huh.
Okay. So I'm a science coordinator for pre-K through 12 in a district of 10,000 students. And I find myself to be overwhelmed often in my job. And I really like the aspect that you mentioned about stepping outside of the frame. When you find yourself inside the frame, you can't see the picture. And
Exactly.
there are so many items in my frame pretty much every day. I literally have to step back and take a look at each individual item in my frame and adapt to how I can attack each of those issues and make those problems smaller instead of bigger. So I appreciate that.
That's great. Yeah.
I think this is a really important conversation for those of us who grow into leadership positions, because I've been a witness in the last few weeks of some really hard leadership decisions that our team has had to make at Resurrection. And, hearing people say, I've never had to do this before. It made me so uncomfortable. I never want to do it again. And it is an absolute showstopper when you don't know how to do something and you're kind of called to the carpet without any kind of toolbox or techniques.
Right. Right.
So having even a reminder of these things, like some of these things I know about, but I never would have put them in a list like I did. So thank you for your very introspective and concise toolbox for us of how we can diffuse our own selves in our own minds and deal with a problem and be adaptable, because that's what we all want. Or I do. I want to
Sure.
be able to adapt to a problem and not run from it. But does anybody
Yeah.
else have a question for Chris before we go? Anyone? Well, I would love to have you maybe do a training with our leadership team. Maybe we can work that out somehow
Okay.
and have you come on with us and help us go through some of those things. I even hired a coach to teach me to breathe. It was expensive. I really didn't need
Right.
someone to teach me how to breathe, but apparently I wasn't doing it right. So, and actually, you want to hear a funny story? She fired me. She
She
said,
fired you?
"You have work to do. You have
Oh,
work to
wow.
do before you're ready for me." And I didn't really know what she meant, but I'm working on it, whatever that is. But and also to be fired by a coach is not a happy feeling. So, I'm in
No.
search of ISO, in search of what am I missing here? So,
Right.
but thank you for
Excellent.
all that you've done, for the work that you put into this. We appreciate
Pleasure.
you. We want to encourage you in your business. Dreams and Bloom is an amazing name for a company. And I will put this on our YouTube channel so other people can
Okay.
enjoy it and learn from it as well. And I guess unless you have anything else for us, Chris, we're gonna call it a night, and we'll see you next time.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much for
Thank
having
you.
me. It's been
Thank
a
you.
pleasure. Have a good night.
Thank you. Okay. Bye-bye.